Hi, it's Jordantine1, and today I'll be showing you how to make these adorable spiral clowns using just your hook and rubber bands. So if you're familiar at all with the crochet clowns, I know they were popular quite some years ago. My great aunt used to make them for us when we were kids. So I thought, wouldn't it be cool to try and recreate them with rubber bands? And so this is what I came up with. So the one I'll be showing you today is going to be in the rainbow colors, and then you can see this one I did white and fuchsia. So I think either way it turns out really sweet, and I think they're a lot of fun to make. To make your clown, you're going to need a hook of some sort. So I have the Rainbow Loom metal hook, but you can use a crochet hook or whatever you have available. You're going to need a bunch of clips, and then I'm going to be using a twist tie to make my magic ring, but that's optional. I have polyfill for the head, and I would recommend stuffing it with something, but it will hold up on its own if you don't have stuffing. And then this is just a small amount of the number of bands you're going to need. So you're going to need about 868 in total. So I hope that's an accurate count. I was driving myself crazy trying to calculate how many bands I used, especially doing all 6 colors. So I hope that I'm accurate. So I'll tell you what I think I used with my rainbow colors. 218 white, 109 red, 113 orange, 112 yellow, 108 green, 105 blue, 100 purple, and then also 2 pink and 1 black for the facial features. And I'm also using 2 black beads. They are glass E beads. The first thing that we'll be making is the clown's arm, and that begins with a chain of 22 white bands. So I have my pile counted out here, and to make a chain it's quite easy. You just take a band, put it on your hook, twist, and put it back on so that you have 2 loops, and then you're just going to take 1 band at a time, get it on your hook, pull it through the 2 on your hook, and get the other end back on. And I do have a clip here that I'm going to be using, and this isn't necessary, but I find it a little bit easier. I'm just going to clip it on the end. Just gives you a little something to hold on to at the start, and it also helps these 2 loops to stay together, because a lot of times they want to split apart from one another and get a little bit wild. So now I'm just going to pull 1 through at a time, and always just get the other end back on my hook. So I'm sure most of you already know how to do a chain. So I'm just going to continue on until I do all 22. Now for the rest of the arm, we're going to be using this pattern of rainbow colors if you're choosing to make a rainbow clown. And you can see I have 1 red, and then I have 2 of every other color in a row. And I have them laid out in piles of 2 because in the chains we're going to be doing what I consider a half double crochet, and then I also have them laid out in sets of 4. So I'm going to do the first 4 with you, and then I'll let you finish it out on your own since it just keeps repeating. So you should have your chain of 22 bands. And we're going to start on the first here. I'm going to do just 1 red, as I said, and then the rest we have 2 of. So I'm going in the end where my hook already is, pulling that through and back on, and then I'm taking my second color, which is orange, and that's going to pull through and back on. So we've done 2 of the colors into this end chain, and now what we're going to do is go back through that same chain. So the very end white one here, and I'm always working from front to back, so I'm pushing through. Make sure you're going through both of the loops there. And I'm going to pull through my next one, so I have my second orange, get it back on my hook, and now here starts the half double crochet pattern taking my second one, which I have my yellow, and that's going to pull through all 4 loops that are on my hook and go back on. So as I said, we're going to be doing 4 of these half double crochets in the chains. Now we're not going to do every chain, so I'm going to do the first 2 chains, and then for the rest I'm skipping every other until the very end, and then I'm doing the last 2 chains on the end. So I already went 2 through here, so I'm going to push through, and I'm pulling up my next yellow. So that comes through back on your hook. You'll have the 4 yellow loops, and then I have my green that's going to slide through all 4 and back on my hook. So that's my third half double in there, and I'm going through one more time, and I'm pulling through a green. So I have my 4 green loops, and now my blue is going to pull through all 4 and back on. So you can see here we've done 4 different ones, and it's easy if you're using the rainbow colors because you can just see the 4 different colors. So we're done with that, so we're moving to our next stitch. And as I said, we are going to be doing every other except for on the end, so I'm not skipping any yet. So I'm just going into this very next chain, and then I'll start my next one. So I have a blue that's coming through back on, and then once I have the 4 blues, the purple is going to slide through all 4, going in through that same chain for a second half double. And now my red pulls through all 4 purple. And if you feel like your hook is getting hung up at all, just pull down as you're pulling through, and it helps so it doesn't get caught up as easily. So you can see we did 2. So I'm going back through for a third. Now my orange will come through all. And I almost just lost it there. And now I have one more in this stitch. So I got my orange, and then the yellow is going to pull through all. So I'm pulling down, and it just helps it to slide through a little bit better. So we did the first 2 chains, and so now I'm going to start skipping. So I'm skipping this next chain of white and going to the next one after that. And the reason I decided to skip is because I think it gives it more of a looser spiral, so you can actually appreciate the spiral pattern. And then another reason is also because it uses about half the number of bands this way. So now my next one's going to be yellow. And then I'm pulling through a green. And I'm going back in for my second one. Same stitch here, or same chain for a third. And then one more time. So that's my fourth. Again, I'm going to skip a chain, go to the next one over, and I have my next set here. So these came a little bit out of order, but I have red going through first. And you'll know if you mess up the colors because when you're going to pull your band through, they should all be the same color. So that's 1, 2, 3, and then here's my last one for this chain at least, 4. So I'm just going to continue in the same pattern, doing every other chain. So I'm going to skip this next one, 4 into the next, skip, 4 into the next. So I'm just going to fast forward here till I get towards the end, and then I'll show you the ones at the end. Now I have my last 2 chains here, and if I'm following the pattern, usually it would be skipping the next one and going into the end. But since it's the end and I want it to be fuller there, I am going to do them in both of these chains. So I'm just going through the next one here, and I'm onto my yellow. So I'm just going to do the 4 in this second to last chain. And don't worry if your spiral here isn't very tight. You can see mine's pretty loose. So we're going to fix that in a minute here when we're done. It's just really a matter of twisting it around to get it to have that tighter look. So that's 4 in the second to last, and now we're down to the very end here. And again, I'm just going to do my last 4 half double crochets. So that was 1, 2, 3, and then the last one here. So you're ending on a blue if you're following the rainbow pattern. And now I'm just going to take my clip that I had just to hold this together here at the end, just to hold those 2 loops together. And I'm going to move it to the 2 blue bands on my hook. And as I said here, you can see the pattern's not super spirally. So now all you're going to do is, starting at the end, you want to make sure your bands are curving nice and inward, so you can try and do that as you're curling it. So just sort of take your time and spin it around here. You can make it as loose or as tight as you like. I sort of like to make it so that the colors line up with each other. I think it looks neater that way. But if you wanted a little bit of a tighter look, you could spiral it a little tighter than that. Just curl this around here. And then we have our 1 arm done. So now what you're going to do is just repeat this process again to make your second arm. So I'm not going to film this, but I will add the time to go back to in the tutorial if you feel like you need to follow the steps again. The next thing that we'll be making are the legs, and it's really quite simple. It's basically the same thing we've been doing for the arms, only this time we're going to have a little bit of a longer chain. So I'm going to chain 28, and I have my bands counted out here. So I'm going to take my first one and double it on my hook, and then I'm just going to continue pulling 1 through at a time. And I am going to use my clip just to attach to the one on the end here, just so it's a little bit easier to hold on to, and then also so it just keeps those 2 loops from separating and getting a little bit crazy. Make it through both of them there. And then I'm just going to continue on with my chain here, pulling through 1 at a time. So it's quite simple. Now I'll be doing the same thing as I did with the arm. I have 4 half double crochets that are going into the chains, and I'm going to do the first 2 chains, and then for the rest of the length here I'm doing every other chain until the very end. So again, I'll do the first 2 with you, even though I'm sure you totally have the hang of it by now. So I'm starting with just 1 single red and then an orange. So they're just going right on the end of the chain, and then from now on I'm doing 2 of every color. So I'm going back in through the white Do my second half double. Then my third. And finally a fourth. And now I'm not skipping yet, I'm doing 4 into the next. So hopefully everyone has the hang of it and isn't having any trouble with this. I think after you do a few, you get a rhythm going and you can knock it out pretty quickly. Here's my last one. And now I'm just going to continue on doing every other chain. So I'm skipping this next one, and then my 4 half doubles will go into this chain here, skip the next, and so on until we get to the very end where once again we are going to do it in the last 2 chains. So again, I'll just fast forward here. So then again, what you're going to do is go back, and again I'll add the time, and make a second leg. Once you have both arms and both legs made, you're just going to set these to the side, and then we'll work on the head. To make the head, we're going to start with a magic ring of 5. So I have 6 rubber bands, and then 5 bands are going to go through the middle one. And I do have a twist tie that I'll be using just to help me get it started. So this is optional, but I find it a little bit easier to do. So you just place that next to your hook if you have one, and then you're going to triple your first band so it goes on, twist, back on, twist, and then back on. So you have 3 loops. And then I'm just going to pull this up about halfway and bend it in half. And that's just going to help keep those 3 loops together and give me something to grab onto. And then I'm going to pull through my 5 remaining bands. So the one goes through, back on your hook, so you have 2 loops and one pulls through the other. And then I'm going in through the front every time. You have to make sure you're going through all 3 loops. And if you don't have the twist tie, you'll just have to pinch those 3 bands in your fingers. You're going to pull through a second band, back on your hook, so now you're going to have 3 loops. One goes through the other 2. Pull through your next one. Again, you're always going to have 3 from now on, and the end one pulls through the others. Here's my 4th band. And then one more time here. And then I'm just going to remove this twist tie and just stretch these around so they're about evenly spaced. And then I'm going to take a clip. You can use a stitch marker, a clip, whatever you have available. I have an S-clip here. And I'm just going to attach it to the band that's on my hook. In row 2, we'll need 10 rubber bands, and we're going to be doing 2 single crochet into each one of our stitches. So I'm just following along here to the left from where my hook is, and just briefly I'll show you what a stitch is. It's like a sideways V, and let me just put my hook underneath to give you a better view. You want to make sure you're going through from the front and going under both of those loops. And you're going to take your first rubber band, it's going to pull through, get back on your hook, and then you have the 3 loops and one pulls through the other 2. And then we're going to go back through that same stitch because we want to expand our circle here. So we're doing an increase. So again, it just pulls through and you have the 3, one goes through the other 2. So I'm just moving over to the next stitch. And again, I'm going to pull through 1 and then back through the same one and get that second one through. And we're going to just do that all the way around here. So this is going to double our count. We started with 5, and when we're done here we're going to have 10 stitches. And I have 2 left here, and it's going to go under where the clip is. Where your clip is should be where your last stitch is. So that's 1, and then back through again. And then you just want to move your clip so we know that's where we ended this row. For row 3, you'll need a total of 15 bands, and I have them laid out the way we're doing the stitches. So we're doing 1, 2, 1, 2, and so on. And so we're still doing an increase, it's just going to be a little bit more gradual. So again, I'm going from where my hook is over to my next stitch to the left, pushing through, and I have just 1 in the first one. Whoops, just slipped right off my hook there. And occasionally that will happen, and it's usually pretty easy to get right back on. And then in this second stitch we're going to have 2 single crochet. So I'm going back through for the second. And then 1 for the next. And then 2 again. So this is really a pretty basic pattern to make a circle. You're always going to start out with your magic ring, and then you do an increase for several rows. So a lot of times you do the 2 in each stitch for that second row, and then you just gradually increase it. So for our head here, for the clown, we don't want it to be very big. So this is our last row that we're going to do an increase in. But if you were doing a larger circle, then you would just continue to keep increasing for several rows. So I have 1 here, and then I have my last one. I have 1 stitch left. I can see it's where my clip is. And then I have 2 stitches. Sometimes this clip gets in my way. Let me just take it off. Going back through that same one. And now I can put my clip back on. In row 4, I have 15 white rubber bands. We're going to be doing 1 single crochet in each of the stitches. And then we're also going to be adding some of the facial features. So I have 2 red for the nose, and then I have 2 pink, 1 for each of the cheeks. So first I will add my colors onto my white bands. So you can see I've already done 1 of the cheeks here, and I've just quadrupled a pink. So I'm going to quadruple this next pink, just twisting and putting it back on until I have 4 loops. And you might want to do 5, it just depends on how tight or loose your bands are, because you definitely want it to have a tight look. And then you want to just take a white and you want to slide all of the loops onto there. So it is a little bit tight to do. Just make sure you get them all to go on. And then you want to just do that for the other cheek as well. And for the nose, I actually have 2 red that I'm going to triple together. So I'm just placing them on, twisting together, and putting them back on, and then again. And then I'm just going to slide that onto the white. I wanted the red nose to stick out a little bit more. So now let me just get this back on my hook here, and we'll just start doing our single crochets. So I'm going through the first one here, and I'm going to do 4 regular. So that's 1, and I'm only doing the 1 in each, so I'm moving on to the next stitch. That's 2, 3, and then 1 more. And now I want to add one of the cheeks here. So I'm just taking this band, I'm just going to go through that next stitch, and I'm just pulling through the one side and then grabbing the other side just like we normally do. One pulls through the other two. And then I want 2 regular single crochet in between here before I add the nose. So that's 1 and 2. And now I'm going through the next stitch here, and I'll do the nose. So I'm just pulling through that one side, grabbing the other. And now once again, I'm going to do 2 more regular. So that's 1 and 2. And now I'm going to do the other cheek. And then I'm just going to continue around regular. So I should have 4 left, so that's 1, 2, 3, and then the last one makes 4. Then I'll just move my clip. And you might have to do a little bit of adjusting to the cheeks or the nose. You can see how it sort of came apart here a little bit. So if it's separated, you can just slide it over here, just overlap it until you don't see any white sticking through. And then the same thing on the nose, if you will have to play around with the bands a little bit. In row 5, you're just doing 1 single crochet in each of the stitches, so you need 15 rubber bands. So this should be pretty straightforward here. The only thing that's going to look a little bit different is where we've placed the cheek and the nose bands. So let me just show you when I get around here. You're just going through the regular stitch, but you'll see you have these other colored bands that are kind of very close, but it's still going to be just that regular stitch to go through. They might be stretched a little bit differently depending on how that colored band is pulling it, but you can see we went through this one, so we're just going to this next one over. And this does look like it was a little bit bigger on this side and a little bit shorter on that side. But that's no problem, just make sure you're not skipping any of the stitches. So now this is the one that's right before the red, and I can see it does look like it's pulled a little bit bigger. And now the one after here looks a little bit smaller, so just make sure you're getting through each of those. And now the same thing with the next one. It tends to look a little bigger on one side. And then the last one here, and then move that clip. In rows 6 and 7, you're going to need 15 bands for each, so it's just 1 single crochet in each of these stitches. And if you wanted to, you could add your eyes here. I would add them on row 6. And you can either use a black rubber band that you quadruple, and use that for the eyes. Or if you have beads, you can string one of the beads onto the bands. I did that by using a twist tie. And let me show you the beads I'm using. These are 2/0 glass E-beads. But I'm actually not going to add mine right now, and I'll show you the reason why on my one clown here. I like the look of the eyes when they are facing in a more vertical with the beads that I have. I want mine to be this way. And if I added them within the row, they would come out this way, more horizontal, and I just like the look of them this way better. But depending if you have rounded beads, it wouldn't make a difference. And then if you have bands, it wouldn't matter either. So you can go ahead and pause your video here and make rows 6 and 7, and then I will show you what to do next. The next thing I'm going to do before I continue on with the hat is to add the eyes and the mouth. So for the mouth, I'm just using one black band, and then I have a white band I'll put inside for the anchor. And you can use more black than that for the mouth. I'll show you my other clown. I had actually used 3 black bands. So it really just depends on how you want it to look. You can make it as big or small as you like. And then I have my 2 beads for my eyes with a band through each, and then 2 more white bands that are going to be the anchors for the eyes. So I can see here, straight below where my nose is, there's a opening in between the stitches, and I'm going to put my mouth somewhere around here. So I'm going to picture this as the center point. So I'm going to put my bands through on either side of the openings there. So I'm just going to reach my hook in from the inside. I'm going to push that out. And then I'll pick up my black band and pull it through to the back. And then while leaving it on my hook inside there, I'm going to go to the opposite side, push through, and I think, yeah, my band did slip off. Let me just get that back on my hook. And now I'm pushing it out. Grab the other side and pull that through to the back. So now on the inside here, and you can flip this inside out if you'd like, I have my 2 black bands here, so I'm going to take my additional white band and just anchor these. So I'm just pulling it through and then pushing one end through the other. I'm going to pull that really nice and tight because we don't want that to come apart. And now let me just flip it right side out here so you can see our cute little mouth. And now for the eyes, I'm going to look to the center here, and I can see this one opening here is where I want one side to be. So let me just push through from the back and grab one end, pull it through. And now when I'm adding the eyes, I don't want to go through this very next opening, just because if I do, these white bands are a little loose, so the eyes tend to stick out more than they should. So I'm actually going to go to this next one over. So I'm skipping that one opening, grabbing the other end here, and now I have my 2 loops, so I'm just going to take another band and make a slip knot here. Pull that nice and tight. So there's one little eye, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side here. I'll go through this one that's just a little bit right of center. And then I'll skip the next opening and go to the one to the right of that. And again, make a slip knot. Nice and tight. And then if you wanted to, let me just flip it inside out again. You can tie these bands together just as an added security measure that it's not going to come loose over time. The only thing I caution is if you were to take these and tie them really tightly together, you are going to make this face buckle in there. So you can definitely tie them off. As a matter of fact, let me just slip this bottom one over top of the other one, and then I'll tie these together. But I'm going to do it loosely, that way I don't have to worry about changing the shape of the head. Just double knot that. And now I can flip it the other way and move my eyes in a little bit more towards the middle. And here's my cute little clown face. In row 8, we're going to start to form the hat. So I have some bands laid out. I'm just going to do the first 2 stitches with you, and I'll let you complete the rest on your own. So I have my bands in piles of 2 since they're half doubles, and then I also have them in sets of 3 because we're going to be doing 3 half double crochets into each stitch. So the thing that's going to be different this time is instead of going through both loops of the stitch, we're only going to work in the outer loop. So here's my next stitch over. Let me stick my hook under both. So you can see this is what we normally do under 2. Instead, I'm going to go in through the middle to separate them and just push out through this outer loop. So I'll take my first red, it's going to pull through, and I also want to do a slip stitch here since I'm changing colors to get the white against the white. And now I'll pull through my second red. So the 2 colors are always going to be on top of one another. And then I'm going through this same loop, same stitch, pull through my orange, and then my second orange will pull through all. I'm sure everybody's quite familiar with the half double by now. And then through that same stitch again to do my yellow. So we've done the 3, and I'm moving on to the next one. Again, from the middle, I'm just pushing out. So I have my 2 green through that same outer loop for my 2 blue. And you will notice as you're going through just the outer loop, it is a little bit of a looser feel than you might be used to, but that's okay. And then I'm going back through that same one for my purple. So I'm just going to continue around doing 3 half doubles in each one of these outer loops. So you can pause your video and do that now. I've made it almost all the way back around here with my half doubles, and I have decided that I'm not going to do the set of 3 in the very last stitch where my clip is. So I've actually done only 14 stitches, and I'm going to skip this last one. In row 9, you need 15 rubber bands, so I just have them laid out in their rainbow color. And we're going to be doing 1 single crochet in every stitch. And we're only going to be going through the inner loop this time. So as you see here, we only did the 14, and I have my clip on this last one. So this time we are going to go through this 15th one. So that's where I'm going to start. So you can see it has an inner and outer loop, and since we didn't go through the outer loop, it's bare there. But we are going through the inner loop this time. So let me just take the clip off so it's easier for you to see here. So from the inside, I'm going to be pushing through from the front to the back, and I'm only going through that very first loop. So I'll take my red, and I'm going through the white, and then also through the 2 purple to make a slip stitch, and then 1 will pull through the other. So if you look here, you can see where our first 3 colors were through the outer loop. We want to go to this other white band that's on the inside. Again, you're always pushing from the inside back. And we're going to take our next color, which is orange, and do a single crochet. So you pull it through, you have your 3 loops, one pulls through the other 2, and we're just working around. Now if you take the brim of your hat and push it back, it helps this inner stitch to be more apparent. So you're just going through that. Next one, I'll take my yellow, do that single crochet, and then I have green, and in this next one we'll do blue, and then I have purple, and now we're just going to keep repeating here. Sorry, my clown face is messing up all my band order here. So I have red, and orange. Let me just move these over. And you will feel that it definitely is looser as you're doing this. Again, because we're just going through one of the bands, just like we did for the previous layer. So now I have purple here, and you can see how it's starting to grow up here and separate itself from the brim, which is what we want. And now I have just 3 left, so I won't be able to complete the entire rainbow pattern. But all the colors are just going to flow into one another anyway, so it's not going to matter. And then here, my last one, I have yellow. So let me just take my clip and put it on that. In rows 10, 11, and 12, you're going to do 1 single crochet in each stitch. So you have 15 bands for each row, and you're just following the rainbow colors. So I'll do the first set with you, and then I'll let you finish it out on your own. So from where we left off here, we want to go through this first red. I know this part might look a little confusing because this is where they join, and it's a little bit jumbled here. But if you look to the top here, and you look over to the left, this first stitch here, right before the orange, is what we want to be going under. So you are going under both loops from now on. And you're going to take your red, and you are going to do that slip stitch, so go through the yellow and then do that slip knot. And now you're just going to follow around, so you're going under orange, yellow, and then we have green under green, blue, and then purple, so you would just continue around this row using your pattern, and then make the 11th and 12th row as well. So you can pause here, and then I will meet you back to show you the next thing. In row 13, you're going to need a total of 13 rubber bands, and we're going to start to do our decreases. So I've put a clip where we're going to put 2 stitches together. So the first and second stitch go together, and then also the 8th and 9th stitch go together. And then I've also taken out 2 of the colors from the pattern, just because we want to keep our pattern going with this cool look that we're creating with the colors sort of going in a diagonal direction. So I'm starting with orange, where normally I would be starting with red, since those 2 are going together. And then where the other one's going together, it would normally be orange. I've skipped orange and done yellow. So, as I said, the first 2 stitches are going together. So to do a decrease, what you're going to do is just go in through the first set of bands, and then what you're going to do is pull your hook back towards yourself, and then also go through the second set of bands. So you have 2 stitches on your hook at once, and I'm going to take my orange, and it's going to pull through the first set of bands, and then also the second. Now this part's a little more tricky. You might have to leave a little tension on it to get it to pull through. And then I also make sure that these are a little bit spread out. They're not scrunched really tight together. Get the other end back on, and then the orange will pull through both. So that just lessened our stitch count by 1 there. And then we're just going to work our way around here, so the colors should line up right now. So we have yellow, and then green, and now I have a red here. And now here comes our second part where we're joining the stitches. So you can see I have just the yellow. So I'm going through the orange, pulling back towards myself, and then also through the yellow. So I have the 4 loops plus the one at my base. Taking my yellow band, and it's going to pull through the 4 loops, stretch it out a little bit, get it back on, and then one goes through the other 2. And then it's just a matter of completing the rest of this row. So again, they should be lining up. It was actually easier, I think, when I did the other clown with the 2 colors, because even though sometimes the same color was next to one another, I didn't omit any colors, and I think it worked out pretty well because they just sort of blend into one another. But I think with this, with the 6 colors, you just notice it a lot more. And then yellow's my last here. And I'll move this clip. In row 14, you're going to need 11 rubber bands, and we're doing some more decreasing. So I have the first and second stitches together, and then the 7th and 8th stitches together. And you can see our colors are getting a little bit changed around here, but I'm just trying to keep up with this pattern here. So since the first 2 stitches are together, I'm starting with yellow. So I'm going through the orange, pulling back, and then through the yellow. So I'm going to pull this yellow through, back on, and then through the other 2. And then my next one here is green. I know along the way here we're losing some of the colors, because once they drop out, then you can't really put them back in or it messes up the pattern. So if you devise a different way to do this than the way I'm showing it, to change your colors around, you can certainly follow that. So I have a red with a red here. And then the next 2 are going together. So I have green, so that's where I'm leaving out the yellow. So I'm going through the yellow and the green, pulling it through those. Pulled it a little bit too hard there. And then I'm continuing around here with the blue. And now the rest of this row should line up here. And the last one is yellow again. Now before this gets closed off any further at the top, I'm going to add some polyfill. So I'm just going to take little bits at a time and push it down in. It shouldn't be too hard to fill because there's not a lot of nooks and crannies. It's just a nice circle. And you don't want to overstuff it so you can see the stuffing in between the bands, but you want to have enough so that it's nice and rounded. So you can use your best judgment. I think I'll add just a little bit more. And then as we continue to make the hat here, if there's just a little bit of an opening left, you can stick a little bit more in for the top of the hat. In row 15, we're going to be putting together every 2 stitches. So I know that our color pattern's getting really messed up here, just by the way everything's coming together. But I'm starting with green, then I'll do purple, red, blue, and orange. And there's actually going to be one yellow stitch that's left over that I'm not going to go through right now. So now that we put our fluff in, you're just going to be fighting with that. So you want to make sure you continue to keep that pushed down while you're putting the bands up, just to try and avoid getting it all stuck in between your stitches here. So I'm going through the first 2 and combining that with a green. And then the next 2 I'm going to do purple. I usually try to do the color that the second stitch is, but for this row it's going to change up a little bit just because I didn't want it to be all green and purple at the top. So the next 2, as I said, I usually would do the green, but since we already did a green, I decided to do a red. And then the next 2, again, I'm doing a blue instead of the purple. And now the last one here, I have orange. Whoops, I lost that one. And as I said, we have this last one that I'm not going to go through right this minute, so I'll just leave that like it is for now. Now what I'm going to do is just take one additional band and I'm going to tie this off here. So you should still have the orange one on your hook and then this clip through the yellow that we didn't go through. So I'm just going to go through one over here on the right a little bit. So I will go through these 2 purple, and then I also want to go through these 2 yellow, and I can take my clip off. I'm just going to take an additional band, so I picked orange. You can pick whatever color you want. And I'm just going to go through all these ones that are on my hook and do a really nice tight slip knot, so that's not going to come apart. Just to close that off. And then I need to hide this loop, so I'm just going to reach up through. I'll go on the back here. Just try not to get too much fluff coming out with your hook, and just pull this down in and hide it. Now if you want, you can make a little pom-pom for the top of the hat. So for that I have 7 white rubber bands, and I'm going to take 5 of the bands and triple them on my hook. So I'm just twisting and putting them back on until I have the 3 loops. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is the last one, so it does get pretty full there. I'm taking another band and I'm going to slide all of these on. Now what you can do is take a clip and attach it to the end just to help prevent these from sliding off since it's going to get so extra full. And I'm just going to carefully slide all of these on. If you want, you can do them one at a time. So you can see how full that is. Just going to get the other end on my hook. And I'm taking this additional band and pulling that through the two. Take this clip off. So here's what it looks like. Now we just have to attach it. So I'm actually going to take this off. I'll pinch this in my fingers. And I'm just going to go through one side and out the other here at the top. I just want to make sure I'm not going through this loose loop that I pulled down inside because I don't want to anchor it to that. And then I'm just going to take one side, pull it through, grab the other end, going to pull that nice and tight, make a super tight slip knot. And then once again we just have to hide this loop. So let me go up through from the back and pull this down in. I want to get it to go down even farther here. The next step we're going to do is sew the legs together. So I have 7 bands for that, and I've matched them with the colors. So you're going to wind up having 2 blue and then 1 of each of the rest. So you're going to start at the end where your clip is, and we're just going to match them up together so that the colors are all in line with one another. And I'm going to start from the bottom and work my way up. So since we're doing 7, we're going down to the second blue, or if you didn't use these colors, just count from the top down to the 7th one. And you're just going to take your hook and go through all 4 stitches. And I'm using that same color, going to pull it through all 4, back on my hook, and then one goes through the other. And I'll just work my way up here, so I'm going to go through all 4 of the purple. I'm pushing from front to back. Going to pull through the purple, get it back on my hook, and slide it through the other 2 just like we do with a single crochet. Now I'm going through the 4 red, so it's coming through those 4, back on, and 1 through the other 2. And now I'm doing the orange. And yellow. So this part's not too difficult, I don't think. We have green. And then finally we have blue at the top. Now these are loose, so that's why we have the clips on them. So you have to go through the 2 blue bands and then the 2 blue on the other side. Make sure you have all 4, because they are loose, and if the clips come off, they'll come apart. So go through those 4, back on, and 1 through the others. So now you can remove these clips, and we are still going to have to put a clip on the one that's on our hook. So I'm just going to attach that. And now you can see we've sewn this together. This is going to be the front. And then this part here that sort of looks like a spine is going to be the back. The next thing I'm going to do is sew the arms onto the legs. And so I have it so that the back is facing towards me where this little spine part is. And then I have 5 white rubber bands. So if you take an arm where the clip is at the top, that's going to be facing downward. And we want this to be in front of the leg part. And where we're actually going to sew it together is where the chain bands are. So if you look here, we have the first 2 white chains on the leg section, and then here's the first 2 white chains on the arm section. So they're going to be opposite of one another, but I'm going to line them up. I'm going to take my hook and go through the bottom here of each of these chains, and then I'm also going to get these blue bands to go on my hook. And I'm just going to get rid of this clip now. And I'll take my first white band, it's going to pull through the blue, and I just lost it there. Let me get it right back on. It's going to pull through the white, pull through this other chain, and then go back on, and one through the other. And now I want to go through that same chain again. So let me just stretch this out here. I'm going through all 4 of the white, and this band is going to come through just the first 4. Let me get this end one a little bit away from that. Back on, so I have my 3 and 1 through the other 2. And then I'm going to this next chain above on each of the pieces. And I'm going to pull through my first one, and then again I'm going back through, and then finally I'm just going to go through again and take one last band so I can just tie this off. So I'm going through all 3 loops on my hook, and I'm going to make a nice tight slip knot, and then I'm just going to pull this through a couple of these stitches just to hide this. So I'll just loop it around here and slide it through. So now we have the one arm done, and you can see how the end of this arm here is going to serve as like a little vest for the front of the clown. So we just need to repeat this on the other side. So here's the arm, and I want this to be facing downward and the curve to be up. And I'm going to put it in front of the leg and match up the first 2 chains. Again, remember they're opposite of one another. So I'm going to take my hook and push through this bottom one first. So I'm going through the 4 white, and then I also need to incorporate these 2 blue. So I'll just go through those. I can take the clip off. I know this part might be a little bit confusing or hard to see. I think when I did the 2-color clown, it was a little bit clearer where you needed to go. I think with all these rainbow colors, it might confuse things just a little bit. So I'm taking my band and I'm pulling through the 2 blue, and then the white, the other 2 white, and I'll make a slip knot, and then I want to go through the same one here. So this got flipped a little bit the wrong way. Let me just stretch it out so I make sure I'm going through the right one. I feel like I'm at an odd angle or something with my hook. I'm going to pull through the next one. And now to the next chain here. Can do 2 in this one, so that's 1. 2, and then I'm going to go through again just so I can make a slip knot here and tie this off nice and tight. And again, I'll just work it through these stitches here. Just sort of wrap it around and pull it through. And so here's what it should look like. And the spirals do come uncurled a little bit. But you can see here how we have the legs, the arms, and his little vest. Now before I add the head, I'm going to put a little button closure on the vest. It's really quite simple to do. So you just want to take a bead. If you have beads or a button, you can use whatever you want, and put it on a rubber band. And then you want to see where you want this to close. So I think I'll do it through the orange. So I'm just going to go through the 4 oranges here. And I'm going to pull through one side. And then I'm going to get the other end to go back on my hook. And then I'm going to pull the one white through the other. Then I'm going to pull this through the orange. And then I'm just going to slide this over. Let me just get a good angle here. And I'm just going to loop this white around the button. And it's going to hold it closed. Let me just pull it out a little bit to make sure that it's nice and secure. So there's my little button closure for the vest. Now we're going to attach the head, so you're going to need probably about 4 to 6 white rubber bands or whatever color you want to use. And to me this is kind of the hardest part because you have this more rounded 3-dimensional head and not a lot of support for the body. So the best way that I found is to sandwich it in between this back part from the legs and then the front part from the arms. So I'm going to take my hook and go through these 2 blue loops on the right, and then I want to take the head and go through some of the white bands at the bottom of the head. You just want to make sure that your head is facing forward, and you can go through a couple of the bands and see how you think it looks, and if you don't like it you can always readjust. So right now I have it through here, which I think looks pretty good. And then I'm going to go through the 2 purple bands that are from the arm. So now I have all these loops on my hook here. I'm going to take a white band and I'm going to pull through everything. So it could very easily get hung up here. There we go. Get the other end back on, and then I'm going to grab another band and let me just pull this through and make a really nice and tight slip knot. So that's one side, and then I'm going to do the same thing for the other side. Now we do still have one loose band that has a clip on it, so what I'm going to do is actually go through that one first, and I can take this clip off. Then I'm going to go through the 2 blue from the other side, and then I need to get some more of these neck bands. Let me just angle it this way a little bit. I try and get them pretty evenly spaced. Let's see how that looks. Sorry, let me pull this up a little more so you can see a little bit better. I think that looks pretty good, and then I'm going to go through the purple. So once again, I'm going to take another white band and pull through the purple. It looks like I only made it through one. Let me just fix that. So both purple there. Going to go through the 2 purple, through the headbands, through all 3 blue, get it back on, and take an additional band and pull that through these two, and again pull that really nice and tight and make a slip knot. So then here's my head, and then we need to flip it over, and we just have to hide these two white bands, these two white loops. So since the body down here is all colored, I'm going to hide them up here on the head. So I'll just pull them through a couple of the bands here. And then the same thing for the other one. Just pull it up through. And you can play with the brim of the hat and put it so you can see his face. And then if you want the eyes to move in a little bit closer, you can do that. Play around with anything that needs to be changed. The spirals, as I said, the spirals do tend to come apart a little bit, so you have to do a little bit of adjusting. But I think he turns out really super sweet, and I really just absolutely love it. I hope that everyone loves their new spiral clowns. You can always leave me comments on YouTube and Facebook, post pictures of your creations to my Facebook page, and please feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can stay up to date on my latest tutorials. You can also find me on Pinterest and Instagram, so please feel free to subscribe to those as well. Thanks for watching!